podcast with you in mind. Today I have some incredible guests with me. I'm really excited to have Tina and Janet I can never do this. We've done this like 7 times, but say your last name for me. Passalacua. Tina and Janet Passalacua. So good to have you guys. I'm so excited. When I started this podcast, I started thinking about different stories that I wanted to tell, some incredible stories, and yours definitely came to mind. We've met each other about a year ago now, which is hard to believe, but it has been so cool getting to know you, and I'm really excited for people to hear your story. They're going to be hearing your story in a different kind of way, right? We're going to be communicating a little bit differently. So let's talk a little bit about why we're going to be doing that. So why don't you explain your relationship a little bit and how we're going to be communicating today.
Okay, well, I'm Janet Passalacua. I'm her mom. And of course, this is Tina. And she will be communicating with us through finger spelling. Because she has a trach and she is not verbal at the moment.
But because she's not verbal, it doesn't necessarily mean that intellectually you don't understand what we're saying, correct?
Correct.
Everything that we talk about today is, coming from a different perspective, but also being communicated very clearly. So it might take a little bit of time to get a thought out, but I think that's the beauty of communication, is that it can come in so many different forms. So we're going to talk a little bit about what your life was like, 8-9 years ago, and then we'll kind of talk about where you are today. So I'm really excited to hear what that journey has been like.
Well, 8 years ago, she was living in California and traveling all over the world. Her job as a consultant took her to Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, to so many, all over Europe, and it was quite an exciting life.
Yeah, you are the world traveler.
Yes.
You've been on a lot of adventures. I think we've talked about, how you used to adventure and the places you used to go. Where has been one of the best places that you've ever been?
Shark, diving in South Africa.
Shark
Yes.
diving in South Africa. That sounds scary. I don't think that I necessarily would be brave enough to do that. Let's talk about how your travel and your wanting to see the world, how that really transpired with the job that you had before your accident had happened. Where was your life? So I've heard some pretty incredible things about your accomplishments. Can you share those with everybody?
Well, me?
I'm going to let you brag, Mom.
I'm allowed to brag. Okay, well, we're from New York originally, and she graduated high school valedictorian, went on to Cornell University, and then got her MBA in HEC in Paris, France. And then she worked for KPMG as a consultant, and that's what took her all over the world, besides the fact that she loves to travel for pleasure.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Not only are you beautiful, but you are so smart. And I find that to be just so wonderful that you were able to really see the world at such a young age and be able to experience so many things that not everybody really gets to experience, When you think back to what your life was before you had your accident, is there one memory that really sticks out about, all of the travel that you did and all of the work that you had done before that?
Now I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. You can share whatever memories you have, and we can take as long as you need.
Well, I know that when she went to school in London when you were 18, 19, 20, she was 20, she decided that after the summer session that she was going to take her backpack and backpack across Europe. And then she did that and said it was the most wonderful experience.
That's pretty incredible. Were you guys close growing up?
Yes, very.
You were very close, but you were also very independent. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So, we've talked before about when you were 18, you just wanted to leave the nest, right?
Yes, and she did.
So, let's kind of talk about the transition, right? So, you've left the nest, you're experiencing the world, and then almost 8 years ago, the unthinkable happens. Can you talk a little bit about what that situation was and how that really started to change your view on your life, but also your relationship?
I'm G-R-A, grateful, and N-O, not T-O-B-E-I-N-A-N-I, institution, S-O-M-E, somewhere, A-N-D-T-H-O-U-G, and though, T, thought, and though, H, T, H, I, this, I, is very difficult, no, D, I, different, I, A, L, W, A, I always, R, E, remember, T, H, A, that.
So although it's really difficult to kind of be in the situation that we are now, you are always grateful for the fact that, you are where you are and you aren't necessarily...
I-F-F, different. N-O, not difficult, different.
So we're in a different situation, but we're very grateful to be alive. I'm very grateful that you're alive. And I've learned a lot from you. Let's talk a little bit about, before we go on to how your relationship has changed, let's talk a little bit about your communication style. As I'm sitting here with you, people can see on YouTube as well, you use finger spelling. Some people would think it was full-on sign language, but I've learned that it is not. You choose to use finger spelling instead of full sign language. Can you explain why that is?
Well, because you have the use of just your left hand. So full sign language would be impossible to do.
Did you find that it was easy to kind of pick up together, or did you have to kind of find your groove along the way?
Well, I taught her finger spelling when she was a child, and we just picked it back up, and we added a little different symbols for us, so we can cut some of the words short.
Yeah, I think it's pretty incredible kind of watching the two of you speak to each other and have communication, and now that we have gotten to know each other over the last year, even I've learned some of the shorthand in a sense, because you kind of just, it's a prolonged experience to want to get your words out, and I can imagine how in one way that can be kind of frustrating, but in another way it's also really powerful, right? Because people have to learn a sense of patience, right? And being able to communicate using your words, even though it's not audible right now, doesn't necessarily mean your words are any less valuable, right? And so I think that that's a really cool lesson to show people, is that just because we communicate differently doesn't mean our words or our time is any less valuable. How do you think that your relationship has changed over the last 8 years?
Between me and her?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. It's just me and her, as usual. It's just a little more in depth because we're together 24/7. But we've always been close, but she did go away for quite a while. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah.
Do you think that if it weren't for your accident, you would be as close as you are today?
I think we'd be close, but not this close. Before this happened, she was planning on buying a home with me in mind. So I wasn't going too far away.
That's awesome. So I know that obviously as your life started to change, the things that you do on a daily basis change, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your hobbies or activities have to just be dormant, right? So what are some things that you like to do throughout your day, throughout your week that make you the happiest?
I believe it's your mosaicing. She has a young volunteer from the high school, Kayla, who has set up her own home as a studio, and they communicate through FaceTime. Tina designs the mosaics, and Kayla and her, they put them together, and they're absolutely beautiful. They're stunning. Yeah.
I don't think I've really met anybody like you. I think it's incredible the amount of things that you've had to endure, and yet you're still so positive. Let's talk a little bit about, I know it's a sensitive subject, but I want to talk a little bit about the nature of your accident and what that created. Okay, so you tell me what you feel comfortable with.
What do you want? Go ahead. Y, O, U. You want me? C, A, you can. D, E, S, describe. M, my, I, N, injury. Yes, well, she was living in Manhattan Beach in California and came in to visit me on Memorial Day weekend 2014 and got to New York City and she passed out. Her friends took her to the hospital and she wound up at Mount Sinai Hospital for an 8-hour surgery. She had a cavernoma, and that's a cluster of blood vessels that look like a raspberry, and hers burst. And after that, she was what was called locked in for 4 months, where all she could communicate with was to move her eyes. That's all she could move. And I brought her home, and since that time we've done all kinds of therapies. We've done stem cell, hyperbaric, we've done physical therapy, occupational, aquatherapy, hippotherapy.
What is that?
Hippotherapy is horse, working with
horses.
Very
cool.
Yes. And we also have a young man now that works with her, and she does boxing and karate. And every day she develops a little bit stronger. And one of the best things this last year was staying driven.
Oh, that's so sweet.
They are a group of people that are so supportive and so kind and who are there 5 days a week or more.
Yeah.
And doing this incredible amount of exercising. I am so impressed by all of them.
Oh, well, that's so sweet of you. I paid them a lot of money to say no. I'm just kidding.
No.
We love having you as part of Staying Driven. I find it to be so wonderful to see you log on every single day, and if you're not there, there's a good reason why you're not, and you let me know ahead of time. But you're very consistent, and watching you develop and change and find these different sides of strength for yourself has just been wonderful to really witness, because as much as I would love to take credit for it, like, I'm not the one physically doing the work, right? And so I think going from almost 8 years ago being in a hospital only moving your eyes to now being able to physically move your body and consistently show up for a 1-hour class, that's an incredible feat, and I think that that's something that you really should be proud of, because I can't even imagine what that must have been like for you as a mother and you as the person that's enduring it, to be like, well, I don't necessarily see the future, right? And now that you're kind of in that future and see that it doesn't necessarily look the same, but there's also some really good things that came out of it. And I think that can be really special too. So, why don't you share one of the things or a few of the things that you've found to be the most helpful in your journey thus far that you've really appreciated with this, I guess, new sense of this new opportunity at life, you know?
I really appreciate having some SOMUC so much so much time TODLEAR to learn watch a lot of documentaries.
So you've taken a lot of this time to learn about,
Yes.
New things and kind of, I can definitely tell that you're very artistic and you like to kind of dive into culture. So that's a really cool kind of takeaway too, is giving yourself more time to really reflect on, the ability to really dive into different culture and learning opportunities. If there was one thing that you could go back and tell yourself 8 years ago about now, what would you tell her?
DOSOME something MEAN meaning meaningful YOUHA have HADENORU. Wait, I got lost. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do something meaningful while you...
Do something meaningful. STOP. Stop. HA. Having. FUN. Stop having fun.
You want
do something meaningful.
No, you don't want to stop having fun.
Oh,
You mean being a silly teenager in your early 20s? Yeah, but you were living your life, man,
Yeah.
and you were having a great time.
I'm glad she did that then.
I think the idea of doing something meaningful, that can be, no matter what age you are. I think that's a really important lesson of doing something meaningful with your time that, we have here.
Mm-hmm.
If there was something that you could tell the world about you, that...
I'm N-O, not S-I, 16.
Oh, yeah.
Years.
She didn't even let me finish the sentence.
F-O, 42.
So Tina is beautiful and has one of the best smiles, but she says that people think that she's 16 and she's not. She's 42. So she wants people to know that. But I think one of the things that I'm trying to kind of lead up to, and I think we've talked about this, is the perceptions that people have of you. Because I was with you when I saw one of these play out, and not only did I want to, say mean things to this person, but I also got frustrated for you. So before we get into that story, let's talk about the perception. What is the most inaccurate perception of you?
THANK that I'm Y-O-U-N, young, A-N-D-N-O, not E-D, educated. Yes.
Yeah, that you're
Yes.
that you're young and you're not educated. Meanwhile, you went to Cornell University. I'm gonna set the scene kind of for everyone, because I think this will stay with me for the rest of my life. We were out we were leaving her apartment to go walk to dinner. The restaurant was literally across the street, and when we use the term walk, we're obviously using wheelchairs, and Janet was walking with us. And Tina and I happened to use the same wheelchair, exact same model. And this woman came up to Janet and looked her dead in the face and said, "Oh, how nice of you. You found her a buddy." And it was so condescending and so... It just shouldn't have been said at all. And I think maybe the woman, I try to give her the benefit of the doubt, was like trying to come from a good place. But, I mean, we all know her, or we don't know her. I mean, I guess you might know her better than me. But I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, that didn't need to be said. She could have said, "Hello, how are you ladies doing? It's so good to see you, out and about." Like, yes, people will say, like, "Oh, it's so good to see you out." But at least that was better than, like, "Oh, it's so good of you to have a buddy," And I think that was probably the most frustrating thing for me, because we're just two friends having, going out to eat and having a nice meal. And her perception was that your mom was basically taking care of both of us. And I don't...
That was very wrong.
Right. I don't think Janet has adopted me. So, no. But I think that's important, right? So the biggest takeaways from this conversation, I hope that somebody takes it away from it, is that communication styles can look differently. And you never judge a book by its cover. Because, quite honestly, this beautiful, amazing, well-educated woman that I am speaking to has so much life ahead of her and so much to offer and so much value that if you don't take, 2 minutes to look past the perception, then you're going to be missing out on something pretty amazing. Is there anything that either of you would like our listeners to know before we say our goodbyes?
No, you're good. I'm F-O-R-T.
She's 42. That's all she really wants you guys to know. Is there anything else from your perspective, Janet, that you would want to tell everybody, or, to have any last words?
Well, this has been an experience for me, to be with Tina and to see the kindness that this community gives towards people, such as Tina, and I'm amazed by their strength and their kindness. Absolutely.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that we got to chat today. Sharing your story is just something I was super excited about. So thank you so much. We have our co-producer down here, Hexie. She's just laying under our feet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Until next time, guys, we'll see you later.